My name is Serge Kamuhinda. I am from Rwanda and I am working with the Office of the President, where I'm responsible for strategy and policy. I am here with a few colleagues of mine, young leaders from Rwanda, from the private sector and public sector. We are 7, and we came here to share our experience, the Rwanda story, with young leaders from South Africa and young leaders from the Nordic countries of Europe. Very good. Actually, it's beyond sharing experience. It has turned out to be a mutual coaching exercise whereby you would share in the specific program of Step Up, you would share your stepping up challenge, and then you would find people to coach you around this challenge, and you would coach others. And of course, we find a lot of similarities, especially with the team from South Africa. We found that we are in similar, that we've addressed similar challenges with regards to the reconstruction of our respective countries, whereby we were countries that started at a similar at one point in time, namely in '94, where South Africa really was at the climax. We were in '94, we were experiencing we were experiencing the genocide against the Tutsi, which was arguably one of the darkest hours in human history. So we then had paths of reconstruction, and it was always the idea or the question has always been in this last 18 years whether we have lived up to the expectation. South Africa has been a country with a lot of expectations from the whole world. Rwanda was a country which was written off, and we have lived beyond the expectation anybody could have. However, we still have a long way to go, and so the problems that are arising from this dichotomy whereby the world is looking at you and you're trying to tell your own story is something I feel we share with the South African. We've also identified similar patterns with Nordic countries. The issue of youth employment has been something that we've talked about a lot, and of course the issue of environment, and there we tried to link both issues, looking at how we can create green jobs for youth, because we already know that for instance in Africa we'll have in the next 20 years or so 1.1 billion people, with 50% of them living in urban cities that are still yet to be developed, or some are in the making. And there will be huge problems of energy, and there will be also huge problems of employment. So of course here in the Nordic countries the problems are a bit different. However, the share of unemployment among the youth is also quite high, even in Europe. So we've talked about it. Yes, it's very, very bizarre actually. You come from a very remote area to gain another, to attend another very remote area, and it's bizarre because where you are coming from is of course your country, and it has a specific context, and here it is as also a country with a specific context, very different from when you attend other international conferences where you go to a mega city and it's all the same. You can expect a hotel, you can expect international people, you talk English, and you will never see something from the country. Here we've seen a lot from the Swedish culture. Yesterday we've heard songs, we hear Swedish a lot, we have the Swedish way of life, we go through, we go into nature, and So it's really exciting because um, there is a whole, beyond the debates we are having and the interesting discussions we are having, there's a whole experience which is really unique because you have international problems discussed in a very local setting, and it's very unique. But I loved it. I loved the nature here, the environment, and the people are very, very nice. Whenever you walk around, you're welcomed. People even invite you to come over and have a nice talk. So it's a really nice experience. Yes, actually, the methodology of stepping up is precisely not to have a methodology. So, but it's to emphasize on a personal story, on the storytelling, and on the narrative of someone, knowing that only if you are able to capture uh, the essence of someone, only then can you really talk about real changes in this person might bring about in the society. And you find that in Rwanda we have similar debates. We have an impressive history, recent history in the last 18 years. So far, we've been really busy with looking at our development challenges and by addressing them. We are not very busy telling the whole world our story. However, the whole world really wants to hear our story, and there's a lot of expectations that are addressed to Rwanda, and I think it's not a bad thing. And we've also witnessed a very, um, you know, and a revolution in how we were open to the world with modern communication technologies, with the regional integration. And so you see Rwandese, young Rwandans going around telling the story, but you feel also that we are not telling our story sufficiently. And so if you are not telling your story, and this is what one of the main findings we wanted to share also here in our experience, if you are not sharing your story, someone else will do it for you, and someone else will do it for you with with another content, and it is as if you didn't leave the story out. Your experience is rendered almost worthless because you are not able, it's not enough to survive your story or your history, but it's also important to be able to tell it and to defend your experience. And I think it will be very useful to engage other young Rwandans coming from here with my colleagues in this discussion. How do we tell our story? And especially, how do you tell your story as individual young Rwandan? Because one of the challenges we've shared here is that you see that we've been able to do a very impressive growth collectively. And now we are moving towards a phase in our history whereby we need to create more values economic-wise, whereby we need to integrate even stronger with the region we are in. A lot of barriers like working permits have been lifted, and whereby we really need to redefine our story towards the whole world. So it will really be important for every young individual around this to be able to tell his story and to be able to find his own values, to defend them, and also to interact with the world so that it can create innovation and economic growth. Because from the moment you've been able to articulate your values, then you are able to um, to tell your story to the world with your values. So and then you have a growth because you're selling your values actually by sharing. Selling is a bad word, but actually the selling process is always a process whereby you share values and someone recognizes this value and is able to, to value what you've produced. And so now that we want to sustain our economic growth and go a bit higher, because so far we have a pattern of 8%, and we want to have at least 11.5, so that we really can be a million country in the next 8 years, which is very ambitious. So we need wealth creation at individual level, and for that to occur, it is necessary that young Rwandans are able to articulate their values and to articulate them with localized international standards. I want to share the story of Rwanda by also linking with the broader theme of today, when technology meets people. You have children who at the time of the genocide were too young to know their parents. Some didn't even know their names because they were saying Papa, Mama, and now they had to redefine themselves.
Also, leadership really, what I see leadership in Rwanda today is really about writing that story that we talked about, but it's really also about who is holding the pen.
Pulled down. It's something we'll never forget, absolutely never forget.
School and follow up their performance, follow up their social life, psychological issues they are facing. Most of them are affected by trauma because of the genocide. So that's how the philosophy came in. We don't have parent at all, but we can be each other parent. We can